Hi, for this video, what I want to do is just talk to you about a brief overview of statistics. When you are dealing with statistics, one of the things that you do have to deal with is data. So one of the things that we want to look at is what is data? And this could be any kind of information coming from observations, counts, measurements, or responses. Data is something that is around us all the time. Every time you go onto your internet, every time you go search for something, data is collected about you, and that information is used to help drive things like marketing. It can drive decisions about economic impacts. It can drive decisions about healthcare. So data, depending upon what field you are in, data can have a very, very different look. Okay, I will make other videos that discuss different types of data. For this one, like I said, I just wanted to do a brief overview of statistics. So what is statistics? Statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data in order to make decisions. The thing about statistics that I love is that statistics can be used in any field of study. It can be used, like I said, in marketing. It can be used in healthcare. It can be used in the sciences, marine biology. Basically, any industry you go into, you are going to find some level of statistics. Having a basic understanding of statistics is very important regardless of which field you go into. Especially right now, since there is so much information available to you, it is really important to look at it and decide whether that information is valid or not. So statistics can help you give a groundwork for a lot of the information available to you today. A lot of times we separate our data sets into either populations or samples. So a population is going to always be all outcomes, responses, measurements, or counts that are of interest. So a population, it can be small. That's something that sometimes they think that if you're talking about a population, it can be small. It doesn't have to be a really large thing. A lot of times when we think about populations, we think about all of the people that live in the United States or all of the people that live in a specific state or a certain town. But populations can be small. If you are a teacher, for example, all of the students in a specific class could be considered a population of interest to you. You may want to look at that set of students and figure out what is their average age. What is their average grade? What is the median of their grade? So there might be characteristics of that population that you want to study. And so a classroom for a teacher could be considered a population. Okay, so it's really important to understand that the population is anytime you were talking about all from that company or all from that department or all from that classroom or all of the people that live in the United States or all of the spiders that live on the planet. The populations can be extremely large or extremely small, and so there are things that we do to study those populations. If you are looking at a very large population, such as all of the spiders that live on the planet, that is something you couldn't study every single spider that exists. You would have to study a sample, where a sample is a subset or a part of the population. So a sample is always going to be smaller, and if you are using a sample, you want to make sure that your sample is representative of the entire population. You cannot take a sample, say for example, of community college students, and then apply those findings to all college students in the United States, because the sample isn't representative of all students at both the university and the community college level. So you have to be very, very careful about making sure that your sample is a subset of the population of interest for you. You can never take a sample of something that is not representative of the entire population and then try to make a general conclusion about everything. Okay, so a sample, I know that up here I use the example that a classroom could be a population. Well, a classroom could also be a sample, because the students in that specific class would be a subset of all other students that are in the same grade level in, say, the United States or in Europe. So a sample will always be a subset or a part of the population. So anytime it says Words like a sample of 150 people was taken, or some of the employees were selected. Anything like that where it's not dealing with every single person at that specific company or that specific town, you're going to be talking about a sample. I will do videos that show how to find different sampling methods. There's a lot of information that goes into that, so I'm going to do it in a different video. But sampling methods are really important anytime that you are trying to make an inference about the overall population. Okay, so I just wanted to do an example with you in this one of a scenario where they give us some information. It would be statistics that would be taken about a certain population. And in this one, they did use a survey. So we are going to identify the population in the sample in this. So in a recent survey of 834 employees in the United States, were asked if they thought their jobs were highly stressful. So they went to this and they asked for highly stressful. Of the 834 respondents, 500 said yes. So we're going to identify the population first. Remember that your population of interest is very important to establish when you are dealing with statistics. You want to make sure you know what you are studying. So in this case, we are studying all employees in the United States. Now, this is something that there are a lot of people employed in the United States, and it would be impossible to go and look at every single one of them in a study. I can't say it's impossible, but it's not very likely to happen because of the fact that there is a lot of employees, and it would take a lot of manpower and a lot of time and a lot of money to find that. So the population is always the larger group that you're talking about. So the population would be all employees. The sample would be the 834 people, or the 834 employees who were surveyed. So that would be our sample in this case. So instead of going and asking every single person in the United States who is employed, they randomly selected a sample of 834 employees, and then they asked this question of them: do you think that your job is highly stressful? So as far as describing this goes, describing is, what did you find? So after you asked your sample of people, we're going to describe, and we had 517 that said yes to the question to whether their job was highly stressful. We could find how many people said no by doing 834 minus 517, which gives us 317 said no. So that might be something that we want to know about this. So these are descriptions that you could find. You could put these in terms of counts. So these would be the counts as they are. We could also set this up as a proportion, and we could say 517 out of 834 respondents said that their job was highly stressful. You could make this a more generalized conclusion and say that more than half of respondents said their jobs were highly stressful. You could also go and approximate this by putting it into your calculator, 517 divided by 834, and get approximately 0.6199. Or you could say approximately 61.99%. So anytime that you see surveys or things that are being generalized to the entire population, when they're saying approval ratings or things like that, they're using sampling methods, and you're hoping that the samples that they did use were representative of the entire population. So we could say approximately 62% of employees in the US believe that their jobs are highly stressful. So you could take and plug this into the larger population, and that's what we do a lot of times in statistics. If you wanted to see how many said no, we could do the same thing with this data and say that 317 out of 834, or approximately 0.3801 or 38.01% said no, that they don't feel that their job is highly stressful. Okay, so like I said, this was just a quick video to talk about what is statistics in general, what is data in general, and then how can data sets be broken up into populations and samples. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. If there are additional topics you would like me to cover, please let me know that as well.